Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, thank you so much for tuning in to the Cardinals on SI podcast. I'm your host, Donnie Drew, and joined every week by my main man, Richie Bradshaw. Before we get into the nitty gritty, go ahead, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow Richie on Twitter or X at Richie Brads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Drew. And Richie, you can see the shadow of my temporary decor in the background. Shadow coming off means 18 more weeks of NFL football. We are finally back. Week one of the NFL regular season. How are you?
Brother, we've never been more back.
Did we
ASU is
did we
1
leave?
0. The Cardinals are here.
Did
I
we
don't know,
leave?
man. You're not wrong. We did never leave, except for during the summer when we didn't record a few times. But other than that, we never left.
For sure. And like you said, the Arizona State Sun Devils 1-0, looking
Going to
to
be
get to
2-0.
2-0 this weekend. Do you know a good podcast to find them on?
My buddy records Locked On Sun Devils, and they're nearing 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if y'all want to hit that subscribe button, that'd be pretty cool.
What
And
also
I'll
be
let my
pretty
guy
cool
know.
is, yeah, no, for sure. What'll also be really cool are the Arizona Cardinals on the road this week, Orchard Park, Buffalo Bills. I mean, the table's already slamming already. I can't imagine
They're
Bills
on
fans
fire
are
too.
already not. Oh, yeah. Bills Mafia, just phenomenal people, phenomenal fans, and a pretty good football team. It feels like they've been contenders every single year for the last couple of years, but that's life with Josh Allen as your quarterback. We're going to get into the matchup today. Before we break down the Bills and kind of how the Cardinals match up on both sides of the ball, it feels like they lost a handful of pretty prominent guys on both sides of the ball. I think from a national media perspective, Richie, there's a lot of hesitation to again put them up as the one of the top teams in the echelon of the AFC with the Ravens, with the Chiefs, and with those likes. Overall thoughts on Buffalo before 2024?
They're still a really good team. And as long as Josh Allen is at quarterback, they've got a chance to win every game that they're in. He's one of, if not the best playmakers at the quarterback position as a thrower, as a runner. He's just as dynamic as they come. This defense, I have a lot of questions about. It's fine. It's serviceable. There's no Matt Milano in the middle of the field. You have a brand new secondary. Both of your safeties are gone. Number one corner is gone. This is okay as a pass rush. You lost your leading sack artist, Leonard Floyd, from last year. So it's a new look defense. You also don't have Gabe Davis and you don't have Stephon Diggs at receiver. So Josh Allen's going to have to figure out who works and who doesn't work at that position. I still trust him to be able to do it, but I would anticipate there's going to be a lot of running this year. And James Cook is bound to break out after cracking 1,000 yards last year. He should be able to do it again this year.
Yeah, you bring up the loss of Diggs, and we asked Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals head coach, about that pretty consistently throughout the week, and he maintained the same message. He was like, first of all, every team has capable NFL players, whether or not they're a star. Just because they lose Diggs, I mean, doesn't mean other guys aren't going to step up around him. I think it's a really good place to start. When you look at their offensive depth, especially at receiver, Matt Collins, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, you have rookie Keanu Coleman, and then obviously Marquez Valdes-Scantling behind. I'm not shaking in my boots looking at this, but I
No.
mean, with Josh Allen at quarterback, one of those guys can step up and emerge. I mean, Curtis Samuel did fairly well in Washington. Keanu Coleman has a lot of hype coming around. People forget he was talked about as like a really prominent receiver prospect at the beginning of the year for Florida State.
There was a point in time where he was wide receiver 3 behind Neighbors and MHJ. And there was talk about him being a top 15 pick. If you go back to some of my really early mocks, I think I had him as high as a top 15 pick. He was certainly in my top 20. The problem is he kind of cooled off. There's some drop issues. There's separation questions, which is why he's starting the year as wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5. I'm not sure if Valdes-Scantling is ahead of him, but he's going to get on the field this year. I do not anticipate him to do almost anything against the Cardinals. I think they're going to roll with their 3 veterans. Curtis Samuel has speed. You're going to have to watch him over the top of the field. They really like Shakir to do a little bit of everything. And then Matt Collins is kind of a jack of all trades, but obviously not to a level of like Jamar Chase or Jettas or anything like that. But he's fine. He is a quality veteran. You got to watch out for these tight ends, Donnie. That's the story here.
Yeah, I mean, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. I mean, oh my goodness. Really quick though, there's a lot of talk about Buffalo's receiving core and if it can be as good as they were last year. I feel like if you could draw any secondary for a week one matchup just to see where you guys are at, it might be the Cardinals.
Yeah,
A lot of unknown, a lot of unproven. Sean Murphy Bunting stepping into that CB1 role. It looks like Starling Thomas is going to be the opposite starter of him on the boundary with Garrett Williams in the slot. This podcast is very high on Garrett Williams. I think it's
we
very,
sure are.
a lot of people are very high on Garrett Williams entering his second season. I'm not worried about him. I'm a big fan of Sean Murphy Bunting. Do I think he's like an elite lockdown corner? No. Do I think he's a serviceable guy? Absolutely.
That's precisely the word you use for him. And that's not a bad thing to say. He's
Yeah.
serviceable, he's a steady veteran. That's not a bad thing at
I
all.
feel comfortable with him in the lineup, and I don't think we could have said that about a lot of guys for Arizona
Exactly.
last year. What I would be watching though is that opposite boundary spot of Murphy Bunting. Man, is Max Melton ever going to surpass a guy like Starling Thomas? Is Keetrell Clark throw himself into the mix at all? So we'll see. Jaden Davis, the Cardinals' preseason darling on the defensive side of the ball, played a little bit of safety, a little bit of nickel corner. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in action, but if you're a Bills receiving core, there's definitely a lot worse matchups to go up against. And whenever it comes to the Bills tight ends, I mean, you have not one, but two guys who just can do so many things for Josh Allen and the rest of the offense.
I can make a bold prediction right here about the Bills for the season, not this game. Would not be surprised if Kincaid and Knox each had 10 touchdowns this year because I just do not think these receivers are going to do much. Like Josh Allen will be able to manufacture production out of them. They could have a receiver with a like 700 yards, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're great. These tight ends are great. So against the Cardinals, here's the good news. You have got some good linebackers. You got Kazir White. You've
Mhm.
got
Mac
Mac
Wilson.
Wilson. Yes, thank
Yep.
you. You've got Jalen Thompson. You've got Buda Baker. You
Yep.
can match up with tight ends, which isn't something you could say about previous Cardinal teams. That used to be
Yeah.
the Achilles heel of the defense was their
Isaiah Simmons.
inability. Yeah, Isaiah Simmons. And even before him, Donnie, like
Mhm.
there was a long time where if you play fantasy football and back before there was any good tight ends, if you were streaming tight ends, you looked for who was playing the Cardinals that week.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. And they got a big task because I think Kincaid will flirt with being a Pro Bowler this year. I think Knox has scored a lot of touchdowns in his career. He could do that again this year. So this is a tough task for the linebackers and the safeties. The corners, like in theory, you couldn't have drawn up a better week one matchup for them to build up some confidence, but it's still going to be a task because you have a quarterback in Josh Allen who can throw guys open and like throw them open with that
Yeah.
arm strength.
Yeah. It's safe to say that Josh Allen could throw a soap bubble through a telephone pole.
Yeah,
So yeah, the arm strength is out of this world. I will say, um, with Josh Allen, there's a lot of good, and with that comes a lot of bad.
a
The
lot of
turnovers
turnovers.
has definitely been a very, very big talking point around Josh Allen. And for a Cardinals defense that seemed to be pretty opportunistic
Yes,
during
they are.
the last couple of games of 2023, and then you move into the preseason a little bit. Um, I would be licking my chops a little bit just to see if we can get a couple of picks or even a couple turnovers off of him.
I think you could get a couple turnovers. If you want me to make a bold prediction off the top of my head, I'll say they get two turnovers in this game. Uh, you've got Jalen Thompson, and I think he is the biggest threat on this defense to lead the team in turnovers. And last year he had 4 interceptions, something like that. Like he had a pretty damn good year. I think he's going to do it again this year. He's one of the unsung heroes of the Cardinals defense. Hopefully, Buddha can start contributing turnovers. Kazir White's a beast, man. He is going to generate
Dog,
turnovers. What?
dog, no, and then like Mac Wilson
Mm-hmm.
is such a versatile guy in that front seven too.
Oh, yeah.
You touched on James Cook a little bit and how he's projected to have a breakout year. Ty Johnson, whatever. Ray Davis was kind of like a draft darling for a lot of people. So it'd be really interesting to see how they go about that. I do think you're right. I do think Buffalo may lean a little bit more on the rushing attack, especially now that they know what kind of back James Cook is. I do want to talk about their offensive line though, because it's not looked at as like one of like the
Fine.
best units in football, but I mean those guys continually get the job done week in and week out.
Yeah, you got Deion Dawkins, and at the end of the day, he is one of the better left tackles in football. I think he's 3 straight Pro Bowls. He might be 4 straight Pro Bowls. And there's definitely some name bias when people go to vote because they don't know offensive linemen. They see Deion Dawkins and they go, I've heard of him before. He's still pretty damn solid. But the rest of the line, it's fine. David Edwards has bounced around the league as a former undrafted player. Connor McGovern was a backup with Dallas for a little bit. You trust Dallas offensive lineman, but he didn't get a ton of time. Osiris Torrance, really good coming out of college. I don't know too much about him in the pros. Spencer Brown, serviceable at right tackle. So outside of Dawkins, there's not another guy on the offensive line that I look at and I go, oh yeah, that's a problem. They're fine, but it's beatable for sure. And for a Cardinals pass rush that has pretty low expectations, you're hoping that at worst you can find a way to generate pressure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what guys like Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols do. We all know guys like Xavier Collins and Dennis Gardeck kind of have to take the next step. Like, super excited to see Xavier Thomas, the Clemson rookie, really kind of step into that third
Yeah.
rotational pass rusher role. I would be so much more confident if guys like BJ Ojolari and Darius Robinson were to be in the lineup. Ojolari lost
Oh
for the year,
man,
and then
dude.
Robinson, placed on IR. Um, I don't question what guys like Jones and Nichols and even like Roy Lopez had a pretty good summer too. Those 3 guys, I'm fine with. I'm excited to see what they do, but just knowing what Darius Robinson proved himself to be capable of, missing that piece to the lineup in week 1 is definitely going to hurt them. But obviously, you highlighted the pass rush. Losing your top ceiling guy in Ojolari definitely sucks. We'll see if other people can step up, but overall, man, just the Bills' offense, it doesn't seem as quote unquote explosive as it was last year. Obviously,
Right.
it's week 1; you don't know what to expect. I asked Gannon if like how do you prepare for a team in week 1? We don't really have any like up to date game film. He was like, you take a little bit from preseason, you take a little bit from the last year, and try to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. I think that's exciting for a Cardinals perspective. We'll get into that in a little bit. Any closing thoughts on the Bills offense, Cardinals defensive matchup?
The one thing I did want to touch on was talking about the pass rush. I think the best thing you can do is manufacture a pass rush. Lots of blitzing, get creative with it. The Cardinals in this game, look, there's no established weapon on this offense. You have a breakout candidate in Dalton Kincaid, and you have a breakout candidate in James Cook. There is no Stephon Diggs on this team. This is going to give you an opportunity to get creative on defense. So if you're dropping 4 guys and you're sending 7, this is the week to do it. See what works, see what doesn't work. There's no guy on this offense that you go, oh shit, I gotta watch him at all times. There's no Stephon Diggs. Again, like there's guys who could be fine, but outside of Kincaid and Cooks, like the receivers, I wouldn't be surprised if uh, Sean Murphy Bunting had a pretty solid game because I think he's more than capable of going up against Curtis Samuel. So if I'm the Cardinals and I know that my defensive line doesn't have an ace pass rusher, I'm going to get creative with especially Mac Wilson. Especially Mac Wilson. I would love to see him just go all over the place and get after the quarterback. So manufacture a pass rush in this game. Do not be afraid to send a ton of guys and see if you can get after Josh Allen. And the turnover prone Josh Allen might turn the ball over.
Yep. Could not have said that better myself. Flipping over to the Bills defensive side of the ball, going up against this Cardinals offense, I feel pretty good about that. Because we had talked about the Bills offense losing guys like Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Bills defense lost a lot of guys, Richie. Matt Milano, Jordan
Huge.
Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White. I mean, those
Leonard
those
Floyd.
aren't just names that you kick the can down on the middle of the road. Those are very viable stars, especially Milano too. Milano was a very foundational piece
Such
of
a
that Bills
devastating
defense, and
loss.
I'm so curious to see what they look like come Sunday.
They can get it done. This is a fine defense. You've got pieces. Ed Oliver has very quietly turned into one of the
Finally
10
came
best.
through, man.
Yes. Fun fact, that was my number one player in the 2019 draft.
He's a lot of people's number one player in that
Oh
draft.
my God, I loved him to pieces. But neither here nor there. Point is, Ed Oliver has very quietly become top 10 in the league. He's going to be a problem. Daquan Jones, he's fine. Journeyman is what he is. Greg Rousseau hasn't lived up to the hype yet, but he has shown flashes. Same with AJ Epinesa. You've seen flashes from him. He's okay. Terrell Bernard, he stuffs the box score. Like he had like 120, 130 tackles last year, like 4.5 sacks. Yeah. He stuffs the box score. He's going to lead them in tackles again this year with Milano out. Dorian Williams, Christian Benford, they're fine. They're very replaceable players. And then that secondary.
Brand new.
Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin. Rapp is a career journeyman, and DeMar Hamlin is only on that team because they have no safeties. Like, those are replaceable at best. Rasul Douglas, he is quality. He reminds me of a Sean Murphy Bunting. Like, he can be your number one corner. You're not thrilled about it, but you can get through with him. Teron Johnson, quality. Like, it's fine. Outside of Ed Oliver, there's no definitive playmaker on this defense. And in fairness, Ed Oliver is a damn good playmaker, but this is a defense that can be taken advantage of. It's a Cardinals offense we're expecting to take a huge step forward and take very positively that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going over 100 yards. He's going to kill it in his debut. I promise you. Nobody can match up with him. So as long as Kyler can get him the ball, and those two have already kind of established a connection with each other, Harrison's going crazy. I'll say 10-plus catches, 120-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is going to be a historic debut for a rookie receiver. Mark it. 10 catches, 122 touchdowns. Start him in fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, you... I did not expect you to. I did not expect that to come out of you. That leads into the point I was going to bring up, Richie. We have not seen any Cardinal starters at all. We saw Marv for 3 snaps in the beginning of preseason play against the Saints. Ran 1 route, didn't get a target thrown at him. The Cardinals said, "Yeah, he's good. He looks great. He can step on the football field." There's a lot of unknown.
Yep.
The little bit of tape you would have seen from the Cardinals offense in preseason, throw it out the window, because with Kyler running the show, that's completely different than a guy like Desmond Ridder or Clayton Tune. Completely different with James Conner in the backfield, completely different with that starting offensive line, and completely different with Maserati Marv, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. And so
you're definitely gambling that they're going to build off of where they were last year. Trey McBride was a Pro Bowl level tight end. James Conner was a Pro Bowl level running back. Marvin Harrison Jr., we're talking about as one of the most generational receiver prospects of the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
In theory, you're also predicting Michael Wilson to break out, who has shown flashes and is now your number 2. In theory, this offense could be explosive. And I do anticipate this offense to be explosive. I think they end up top half in the league. They're going to be fun to watch, but they're going to have to score a lot of points if they're going to win games this year. That
led right into my biggest point. This game, to me, is setting up to be a track meet. It really is. This game in my eyes, is going to come down to which defense can get the final stop.
Right.
Because I not to get into like early score predictions, but like both teams could easily put up 30, and I would not be shocked at all.
No, and that's the way Cardinals are going to have to win this year, Donnie.
Yeah.
It's going to be 34-31 games this year. It's going to be 35-32 games this year because you just can't get a stop on defense. So that's going to be a really good situation for Kyler Murray to post crazy numbers, for Marvin Harrison Jr., for Trey McBride, for James Conner to post some crazy numbers because they have to out of necessity. And they're capable of doing it, but you could end up seeing numbers so inflated this year because the Cardinals had to. It's not
Yeah,
a bad thing.
no. So, final thoughts before we get into our case of the game. One guy we didn't talk about was Von Miller.
Yeah.
No,
Dude, he killed it his first year there before he tore his ACL. Last year he played in 12 games. He had a single tackle. He got benched. They didn't use him.
yeah,
He's basically a non-factor on that defense, which is nuts because he is a slam dunk future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of
mhm.
the no worse than a top 20 edge rusher all time. I think without putting a list together in front of me, I probably put him top 10. But yeah, he's just a non-factor for the Bills. And I think that they are really regretting giving him all that money.
Fair, very fair. I think this is a very advantageous matchup for the Cardinals. And so many players this week, Richie, in the locker room have talked about how you don't really know what you're going to see until you actually get on the field. Um, it's not going to be smooth right away. I don't think they're going to just come out guns a blazing. Like they're going to have to figure stuff out together because this is really their first time on a real football field, aside from the joint practices in Indy,
Mhm.
where they're seeing live action. The bullets are flying, and they have guys who are not their teammates trying to take their heads off, and that is just a night and day different experience from what they have seen the last few months. Obviously, I think you hit a great point. They're hoping to build off of that momentum from the end of last year, where Kyler came back. I think they finished like top 10 in EPA with him under center, and I think they averaged almost like a touchdown more per game, points wise, whenever Kyler was in the fold. So a lot to be excited about, at least offensively. Like I said, man, we just get into the keys of the game. This is going to be a track beat.
Yep.
I really, really do. I think my final score prediction was like 31-27, something like that. It would not surprise me to see both teams hit over 30 points. To me, it's just going to come down to what defense can get the stop when they need to.
Yep. My final score 34-21. I think there's going to be some warts for the Cardinals in their first week. There could be some rust with Kyler, with Trey, with James, with Marvin not playing any preseason. I'm not saying there will be, but there could be.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, the Bills are just so good on offense that if you have any mistakes, if you have a 3-and-out or you throw an interception, there's such a good chance that the Bills are going to hop on that and add 6 to the board. So I think the Cardinals, I I again just thinking off the top of my head, I could see them get shut out in the first half and then drop 21
Hmm.
to 28 in the second half because
Really?
I could. I think it's going to take them a couple of drives to really figure it out. And then they're going to go, number 18 is pretty good. We should get him the ball 10 times.
So I think my biggest key would be not to try to force anything, because so many times in the past, whether it was like Larry or Hop or whoever it might have been, and not to say Kyler force fed like Trey McBride last year either, but you have so many weapons at your disposal.
Yep.
Like Trey at tight end, James Conner, behind you in the backfield. You have your legs to utilize too. You really emphasize that mobility and his ability to get out of the pocket. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Marvin Harrison Jr. Somebody's got to be open. And if not, you just take off. My thing is the talent around you has arguably been top to bottom better than it has been since you got into the league. Use it. Do not be afraid to check down. Do not be afraid to use what the defense gives you, but you spread them out. You spread them out and you find the matchup and you exploit it. And I think Kyler did a pretty good job of that towards the end of last year. Hopefully that continues into it. This is giving me a lot of like 2021 week 1 vibes when the Cardinals went into Nashville and just beat the piss out of the Tennessee Titans unexpectedly, almost out of nowhere.
Who
This is
ended up being
giving
the
a
number one seed in the
lot.
AFC.
Yep, this is giving a lot of those same vibes, at least for me.
Yeah. It's a track meet, it's a shootout, it's whoever gets the ball last, it's whoever gets a stop last. It's gonna be a fun game. If you like overs, if you like high scoring games, you're gonna like this game. Unless the Cardinals just don't figure it out, because the Bills will put up their points. Unless the Cardinals don't hold at their end of the bargain, this game should go over 60 points or darn near close to it.
What if the Cardinals never held their end of the bargain?
They could lose by 3, maybe 4 possessions.
Well, you know what? It's week 1. So much unknown, so much to see, so much to witness. You can witness a lot of our game day coverage at si.com/NFL/Cardinals. Any parting thoughts? Football's finally back, man.
Football is finally back. Have some fun with fantasy. Best of luck to
Yep,
everyone except Brian Betcher and my own father. You guys can kick rocks. Everyone else, good luck, and I hope you win your matchups.
All right.
I play them, Donnie.
Okay.
Why would I want them to win?
That's fair, baby. That's fair. All right. For Richie Bradshaw, I am Donnie Jerome. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Cardinals on SI podcast. Follow Richie on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Jerome. We will catch you guys